Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hello and welcome in. It's good to see you. This is another of our Thursday streams, the Idea Academy streams that we do here every week at lunchtime on Thursday. Welcome into Head of Steel. Greetings, helper of humans, mods, VIPs, and fellow humans. Welcome in, guys. This is our first time that we're streaming not only to Twitch, but also to YouTube. So very excited about that. We have got a little bit of a multi-stream thing going on. I am experimenting with this to see how it goes. Ali, man, welcome in. Good to see you. So if it's a little weird because I'm addressing people that are in different chats, please understand I'm still figuring out this multi-streaming thing. So bear with me. How is everybody doing? If you're here, if you're watching, definitely let me know in the chat. Say hi. Let me know how it's going with you guys. And I'm going to post a link for you. Today, I wanted to start off with a little bit of a question and answer session. One of the things that I've gotten from the recent streams that we've done is that there are some people who would like a little bit more interactivity. They'd like a little bit more of the Q&A. And so because of that, I have a link where you can anonymously share your questions if you would like. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to drop it in both chats here. So if you would like to share questions, Ali, man, that was a great stream today, by the way. I'm just going to give a shout out real fast to Aliman, who did a stream today, a live stream of his own. It was great. It was amazing. He did a great job. He was very entertaining. So hats off to you, Aliman. Good job. And that's actually one of the things that we're going to address today. One of the questions that came to me in advance was about streaming. So we will be dealing with that streaming issue today. So, and again, forgive me if I'm a little bit off. It's because things are a little bit different in the multi-streaming environment. I have to watch a lot of different things, and so you're getting the most authentic version of me today. Warts, faults, and everything is what you're going to get today. But welcome in. Let me know what you're thinking today. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me ask you this question to get you started. To get you started today, let me ask you to think about, and you don't have to put this in the chat, but you can. What's the biggest obstacle that's facing you right now? We'll take it. I'm glad you'll take it, Head of Steel, because this is all I got. This is me. So that's the question for you to think about right now. What's the biggest obstacle that's in front of you right now? What's the one thing that if you could get past it, if you could overcome it, if everything was perfect and you got all the resources and all the things you needed, that things would fall into place for you? Have you identified what that is? Do you know what it is? Let me challenge you to think really, really hard about it. Now, here's the other piece of that. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to look at your life and say, this is the biggest obstacle I've identified. It's in front of me. I'm going to solve for this problem. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do things. It's okay to get to that problem and even to solve that problem and to realize, oh, wait, I was wrong. I solved the wrong problem. Because through the process of solving the wrong problem, often we will identify the correct problems. So that's the challenge for today. What's the biggest obstacle that's in front of you right now? Now, you may have noticed that I am wearing a bright red shirt. It says King Salmon on it. And I know I don't usually wear bright red shirts, but this bright red shirt was a gift from a friend of mine. And so I'm wearing it. But we got this shirt, or she got this shirt for me, because we took a trip to Alaska together. Many of you who have watched me before know that I just recently this summer took a trip with my family and some friends to Alaska. And one of the big things in Alaska that we learned was that there are all kinds of different salmon. So many different kinds of salmon in Alaska. It's the salmon capital. I don't know. It's great. But there are 5 different types of salmon that they talk about. Now, when you go on a cruise, we went on a cruise up to Alaska. When you go on a cruise like that, one of the great things about going on an extended cruise is a lot of times on the lines, they'll bring a naturist along to lecture. And so we had a man who was a scientist that had studied all of the life in the area and all of the geology of the area. And he would give us a brief lecture on some of the different things. Everything looks different. Ben, everything does look a little bit different. It's true. I'm trying some new things. So let me know. Let me know what you think. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it gravy? I don't know. We're going to find out. This naturist was telling us about the different kinds of salmon, and he was saying there were 5 different kinds of salmon, and he gave us a way to remember them. And the way that he gave us to remember the 5 different types of salmon was, he said, you can use your fingers. You can use your fingers. And the 5 different types of salmon, we start with our thumb. The thumb is for the type of salmon called chum. There's a chum salmon, and so we remember thumb is chum. And then on the other side, there's a pink salmon, and this is our pinky. So we have chum, and we have pinky. Now, this finger right here stands for the sockeye salmon, because you would sock somebody in the eye with your pointer finger. So we have chum, pink, and sockeye so far. And then over here, this is your ring finger. You can see I've got my ring on. On your ring finger, what would you do? You would wear jewelry. And so that would be silver, right? And so the silver head salmon is what goes on your ring finger. And then last but not least, the biggest finger of all, the long finger, is for the king salmon. So the king salmon is the one you never want to salute that one. We call it the king salmon salute, because you don't want to put your king salmon up in public. It's very rude. And so as a part of that joke, that's why my friend got me this shirt, the king salmon. We like new things. I like new things too. But the thing that brought about for me was the connection between how we remember things. And the interesting thing was that everybody in our group was able, and is still able to this day, to rattle off the 5 types of salmon that come from Alaska. There was a lot of talk, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, there was a lot of talk about learning styles. Do you remember this? Learning styles? And a lot of people say, oh, I'm a visual learner. I'm an auditory learner. I'm kinesthetic learner, right? These were big things. Did you know that recently there's been a lot of studies that have come out that have said that those don't really work? That's not really the way we learn. Nobody learns in one single learning style. Now, you may have a preferred learning style, but the interesting thing about the studies that have come out recently is that they've showed that the preferred learning style that we have often is not the most efficient learning style for us to use. It's often not the best way for us to learn things. So here's the second challenge for you today. And if you're watching this show, you're going to get a lot of challenges. But challenge number 2 is this. Have you labeled yourself a certain type of learner? Have you labeled yourself a visual learner or an auditory learner? Have you stereotyped yourself? Have you put yourself in a box? Because if you have, then maybe it's time to break out. Because I always thought of myself as an auditory learner, but I remember the 5 types of salmon because of the connection that was made there in that place. And I think it's a combination, not just of the mnemonic, right? Not just of the device with me being able to put the different types of salmon on my fingers, but we know that learning also works better in a communal space. And so I was there with people that I loved, people that meant something to me. I shared that moment. We talked about it after the fact. And I think that is a big part of what drove that seemingly useless fact into my memory. So there's another challenge for you. Break out of your learning type stereotype, if you have one, if you've stereotyped yourself, and start to explore how you can learn things in connection with other people who are meaningful to you. Because once you create meaning around any subject, you will remember what needs to be remembered. So let me know what you think of that. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I a crazy man? Let me know. But that's the explanation for why I've got the red shirt on. So today, again, I'm going to drop the link in here. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put those questions into this link, or you can put them live in the chat. The link is so that if you feel like you want to put an anonymous question in, it's totally fine. That way, you don't have to worry about me reading it out on the air and identifying it with you. Ben says, difficult learner, had a learning disability, and society made me feel like I wasn't smart. I'm better with it, but still not sure my best way to learn. What are all the different types of learning? Well, Ben, if I was to go into all of the different types of learning, it would take a million years, because just the theory around how we learn it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But I'm going to put you on to somebody. I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name is Jim Quick. Jim Quick, Kwik. And I happened to get a chance to see Jim talk last year at the Arena Conference in Los Angeles, where I'm going this October as well. It's amazing, by the way. I'll put a link in the show notes on the YouTube channel. Can't really do that on Twitch, but I'll put a link in the show notes to the Arena so you guys can check it out, see who's speaking at the conference this year. Maybe come down and hang out with me in LA. That would be super awesome. But Jim Quick is an amazing guy. He had a traumatic brain injury when he was very young, and he grew up with learning disabilities as a result of it. In fact, one of his teachers once called him the boy with the broken brain. So what he did his whole life is he created systems to help him learn things because he had to learn in ways that other people couldn't. And so he's got a podcast. He's on all the socials. He's got YouTube channel. Go check out Jim Quick, and he has got amazing resources on learning. The guy is a lord, and he's also the nicest guy you'll ever meet. Love that guy. See, that's how it feels in my head. Roger that. Jim Quick. Yep, that's exactly it. Kwik. You got it. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Well, I'm going to jump into these questions just so we don't go over time. I've got an interesting topic that I want to jump into towards the end of the stream today, too. Something that I saw online today, just on my Facebook feed of all things, and it popped in, and I thought, well, that's something that I need to address. I had a whole other talk planned for today. I was going to talk about why it's important to let other people fail. I was subtitling that, How to Raise a Gen Xer in a Gen Z world, but I'm going to put that off because I saw something else that kind of caught my attention. And so I'm going to jump into that today. Let me just, I'm going to jump into the questions first. Sorry. So jumping into the questions first, the first question that I have, and this is why it's great that the questions are anonymous. The first question that someone posted when I posted this link earlier in our Discord was as follows. The question is, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Well, you know what? That's a great question. What is wrong with me? I know that question was meant as a joke, but let's dive into that for just a second. What is wrong with me? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? How much time do you spend thinking about what's wrong with you? I was just talking to a friend of mine who is a leader that I tremendously respect. I worked with her for many, many years, and we were talking about wanting to do some kind of collaboration around leadership and to have some conversations around that. And I said, well, what would you want to talk about? And she said, oh, absolutely, hands down, I would want to talk about strengths-based leadership. Because she said, companies, especially large corporations, spend so much time trying to fix what people aren't good at that they neglect growing the things that people are good at. Phoenix, I don't know what's wrong with me. Sometimes I let doubt take over. Is that wrong with you? It's an obstacle, but is it something that's wrong with you, right? Rethink conversations I already had or decisions I made. We talk a lot about overthinking, and you guys know that I take from Erwin McManus, who is a great mentor of mine and a guy that I truly, truly respect his way of thinking on this, where he talks about overthinking, right? Overthinking is running through all of the worst possible scenarios. Overthinking is all about thinking what's the worst possible thing that could happen. And overthinking about rethinking, dwelling on things in the past, is all about thinking, it's all about running through all of the things that are out of your control. The cure to overthinking is, number one, focusing on the things that are in your control, he says. And number two, instead of running through what's the worst possible thing that could happen, running yourself through an exercise. What's the best possible thing that could happen? And then taking steps towards that. So I get it. Overthinking is a daily part of my life too. I spent the whole morning thinking about this stream because I'm doing some different things. I'm doing the YouTube live. I'm promoting it a little bit differently. And I thought, well, is it really going to play? Is it going to work? Is it going to be appropriate for the professional space that I'm in? You know, I've usually done this as a Twitch streamer, and it's just been kind of a side thing. But if I want to get more serious with it, is it really going to work? Are people going to show up? Are people going to listen? And so I spent a lot of the morning thinking about that. But here's the thing. When it came down to time to press the go button and go live, I pressed the go button and I went live. And here I am as a result. So if it's good, if it's bad, you guys tell me. I want to hear. Hit me in the comments. Let me know if it's good or if it's bad or if it's otherwise. If it's bad, I can improve it. I know how to make things better. I make things better for a living. That's what I do. I know how to make things better. But if I never do it, then there's no way for me to improve it, right? I have to convince myself that what I have to say matters enough to stick my neck out, to do the scary thing, to do the dangerous thing, and to jump out on a ledge. And you need to do the same. Phoenix says, in the sense of right and wrong, doubt is a major obstacle that if you let it take over, that isn't planned for anyone, let alone myself. Here's part of the problem with that way of thinking, Arisen Phoenix, that we get into, and I get into it too. When we start thinking about what the right thing is to do or the wrong thing is to do, a lot of times we get so caught up in the conversation that we don't do anything at all. I have another friend who is in a meeting yesterday with some colleagues of hers, and the leader of that particular group. Oh. Sorry, guys. Apparently, I have not turned off all my stuff here. Please forgive me. Sorry about that, guys. See, this is what happens the first time we go in to do something like this. Hang on. Hello, Motivational Raid. Welcome in, guys. Sorry, the sound was not supposed to go off. So, see, this is a good example. What could possibly go wrong? Well, I could have thought about that all day, and I still wouldn't have gone live. Welcome in. Let's see, just yell out your personal catchphrase. That is helpful. Absolutely head of steel. Cycling Economics Doc, welcome in. Another great streamer, another good friend of mine in real life. How's it going, sir? It's good to see you. Oversight. Oh, hey. Give us the wisdom. Let's go. If it ain't breaking, we ain't twitching. That's exactly right. So we are multi-streaming also to my YouTube channel today, guys. So you can check me out. Go like and subscribe and do all that nonsense as well. You can see that. And what we're doing today is we're doing a little bit of question and answer today, Doc. So we were talking a little bit about the first question somebody submitted to me. And by the way, if anybody wants to submit anonymous questions, they can do so at this link right here. The first question somebody posted in the anonymous questions was, what is wrong with you? And so I know that it was meant as a joke, but we were taking this moment to kind of walk through that. We think a lot about what's wrong with ourselves. And I was talking about my friend who was in a meeting yesterday, and they were walking through this kind of educational problem. It's an educational atmosphere. And she texted me because she was mad because the leader of the group had accused her of having what he called solutionitis, right? Because she was jumping to solutions for the problem. And what it turned out, he was still doing a lot of graphing and charting and modeling and doing things where she was just saying, wait, we know what the problem is. We figured it out. Here's a solution. Here's a possible solution. Can we talk about this? And he was wanting to jump back into the thinking about the problem. We know, you guys know that I talk a lot about the 6 types of working genius, and the first genius is the genius of wonder, and that's asking the big questions, right? The question behind the question. What's the biggest possible question that you could possibly ask? And I could tell that this person that she was working with was definitely a wonder genius because he was stuck in that wonder. But we have to move through wonder to invention. Invention is the state where we start to propose solutions for problems. So check yourself on this. If you're overthinking, is it because you're looking too hard at the problem and not trying to figure out what the solution is? It really honestly doesn't take us very much time to figure out what the problem is. And if you don't know what the problem is, if you can't tell what the problem is just by looking at it, that's where you need to phone a friend. That's where you need to take a partner. I do this all the time. I'm not a wonder genius. I am a discerner. I'm really good at evaluation. I'm really good at seeing patterns. I'm really good at using my gut to evaluate things. But I'm not a wonder genius. I don't have the biggest question in my mind all the times. So I take partners, thought partners, who I know can do that. So if you don't have wonder, then find somebody who does. But don't stay there. You've got to move on to doing the thing. And that means inventing a solution. So much wrong with me, says the doc. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a beautiful, beautiful man. Solutionetics. I never heard of that. What's wrong with bringing solutions to the table? There's nothing wrong with it, Ben. But some people get so caught up on whether or not we're asking the right questions that they forget the point of asking a question is to get an answer. And you can never let yourself get stuck in that. At some point, you have to act. I'm going to go back to Erwin McManus. Sorry, I'm a shameless shill. But going back to Erwin, he always talks about and he didn't originate this, but this is something I hear him say a lot, is that the solution to overthinking is action, or the antidote to overthinking is action. So if you find yourself stuck in overthinking, find something that you can do. Now, normally I would say, find the smallest thing that you could possibly do that you can't possibly fail at. But I've been thinking about that a lot this week. And I've been thinking lately, once you get to a certain stage, once you get familiar and comfortable with trial and error and failure and picking yourself back up, once you get to that place, I think it's time to challenge yourself to do the thing that you think you possibly could fail at. Instead of the smallest thing that you can't possibly fail at. That's how you get started. But once you're past that, it's time to start jumping at fences you might not be able to clear. Because it's only when you do that that you're going to find how far you can really jump or how high, right? Sounds like that guy just wanted a meeting. A lot of times that is also the case too. Like he dealt heavily into the minutia of the problem. Can't talk. Hi, guys. Welcome in, Goat. It's good to see you. We're very well. We're very well. It's very good to see you today. How are you doing? So, question number one today that we have now answered is, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I'll tell you what's wrong. What's wrong with me? Complete vulnerability, complete openness, complete honesty. Here's what it is. I'll tell you right now what's wrong with me. The number one thing that's wrong with me is that I am afraid that I will never have a significant impact on the world. That's the number one thing that I'm afraid of, is that I won't have a significant impact on the world. And one of the reasons that you hear me talk a lot about pursuing your moment of greatness, you'll hear me talk a lot about elevating yourself, about getting 1% better every day, is because I spent almost 50 years of my life not believing that I could elevate, not believing that I could have an impact outside of a very small geographical circle. And I still have to challenge that every single day of my life. And it is often said that your message a lot of times is going to surround the thing that you're most afraid of. And that's what I'm most afraid of. I'm most afraid that I'm small, right? And that I was born to be small. But only through challenging that will I ever become something greater. Let's see. Let me catch up with chat. This was the theme of the LinkedIn message I referenced earlier. Posted it above, but not sure went through. Oh, sorry, Ali, man. I may have missed it. I may have been on a tear. Let's see here. I do not see it, Ali, man. You might want to hit me up in the Discord, or you can just send it to me on LinkedIn I'm not sure if we're connected on LinkedIn, but you're always welcome to connect with me there and shoot it through. But 100%. We spend so much time chasing. Let me revise that. We spend so much time running away from the things we're afraid of that I think we don't realize that if we just turned around and ran towards them, we might not achieve what we want to achieve, but maybe we inspire somebody else to do it. And I'll tell you that I've helped a lot more people in my life than I've personally achieved. Because listen, guys, I'm fine at a lot of things. I'm pretty good at some things. I have all the confidence in the world that I have a very basic skill set, that I'm able to do some stuff. I can speak in public just fine. I can write a message just fine. I can connect with individuals. I know that I can help. But But those things have never been the moments where I've been most successful in my life. The moments where I've been most successful in my life are the moments where I've been able to pour those things into someone else and see them succeed. So, what's wrong with me? I'm afraid of my own smallness, I guess, is a big part of it. And sometimes that translates into desperation. Sometimes it translates into jealousy. You ever have that happen where you see somebody else and they're doing real well and you think, oh my gosh, here I am working my butt off and I'm just not getting anywhere. I'm not achieving anything. Like it's those moments where you have to walk this weird balance beam of letting yourself off the hook and also not letting yourself off the hook. Letting it be okay that you're not where everybody else is. And at the same time, pushing yourself to be better than you are. One of the phrases that you hear a lot is comparison is the thief of joy, right? When you compare yourselves to other, that takes away all of your joy. And that's true. It can become all-consuming. But at the same time, you have to have a way to measure yourself. And so whatever that is for you, whatever that challenge is to you, my challenge to you is to keep yourself challenged. And if it looks like looking at somebody else and seeing where they are, not in the sense of, oh, I want them to fail or I want what they have, but, oh, if that person can do it, then I can do it too. That's the healthy way that it turns out. The shadow of that is turning it in on yourself and saying, oh, no. If I don't have that same level of success, then, then I don't want that person to either. Send it on Discord. Let me get that pulled up real fast here. Give me 1 second. I will give you my thoughts, friend. Let's take a look here. All right, I'm just going to read this out here. It says, get off that train now. If you're heading down a path that doesn't feel right, don't wait to course correct. The longer you stay, the more you'll lose, not just in time, but in energy, passion, and the opportunities you could have seized. It's easy to get comfortable with the familiar, even when it's not fulfilling. But comfort is the enemy of growth. The sooner you make a change, the less you'll sacrifice. Trust your instincts. They are your inner compass guiding you towards where you truly belong. Don't let the fear of getting off the wrong train hold you back from discovering your true destination. Every moment spent on the wrong path is a moment stolen from the life you're meant to live. Your time is your most valuable asset. Don't waste it on a journey that isn't aligned with your purpose. Be brave enough to step off, recalibrate, and set your course towards something greater. The right path is out there, waiting for you to claim it. I like this. I like this a lot, Aliman. I feel like that. Hitting a dead end wall, but then I just become determined to climb over it. That's good. As long as you can feed the determination. As long as that determination doesn't go away. And when it starts to slip, how do you recharge it? That's a big question that I've been dealing with for years and years and years and years. And I think that does play into this train metaphor that we just talked about, right? If you're heading down a path that doesn't feel right, if you're headed in the wrong direction, how many of us get stuck in a path because it is comfortable, because we do collect that salary, because we do know that we can get those bills paid? Again, I'm just going to go back to my own experience, right? I spent 50 years. And I had some good jobs. I had some jobs that I loved, in fact. I had some jobs where I think I did some good. But at the end of the day, I left all of those jobs because there came a point where I realized they weren't aligned with what I was supposed to do. So here's the first thing that you have to do. You have to determine what is it that you're supposed to do. Now, I'm not a big destiny guy. I don't think everybody has one thing that they're put on the earth for, and that's the thing. I don't think that. Just like I don't think there's only one person out there for everybody. I don't believe that. I believe there's a lot of flexibility in what we would call fate, right? But what I do believe is that you have to have purpose in your life, and that you drive that purpose. And so it's up to you to figure out what is it that I really do? What is it that I'm really like? What do I do? I'll go back to Jason Pfeiffer, and I reference this all the time, but he's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, and he talks a lot about we a lot of times will come up with these mission statements, and they're very flowery and they have all this language. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to, what do you do? When someone asks you, what do you do? Normally we say, oh, my job is, I do this for a living, right? But is that really what you do? Because what if you lose your job? If you lose your job and your identity goes with it, that's the most useless thing on the planet. So it's up to you to figure out what you really do. Let me twist it a different way. If there was something in your life that you couldn't access that would change fundamentally who you are, what would that thing be? If there was something that, if it was taken away tomorrow, that you wouldn't be the person that you are, what is that? And I'll tell you right now, when you find that thing, you're going to be one step closer to tapping into your purpose. Because those things that make us who we are must be ingrained with what we do. And if they're not, you will never be satisfied. And that is the time you know to jump off the train. If what you're doing is not aligned with your purpose in life, it's time to jump off the train. I'll give you one more time. C. Lee, who is a friend of mine, she runs the Boys and Girls Club of Merced County here in California. I did a podcast with her not too long ago, and I asked her, because it was very clear that she has a very good framework for saying no. And I asked her, what is your framework for saying no? How do you know how to say no? And she told me 3 things. Number 1, I have to check and see if it aligns with my mission. Right? And that's what we would talk about as our purpose. So does it align with your mission? Number 2, she said, does it align with my resources? Do I have the time, the money, the energy, the so on and the so forth? Do I have the resources to be able to successfully do this? If not, it's a no. And the third thing that she said is it in line with my trajectory? Right? Is it in line with my trajectory? Meaning, not just my purpose, not just my mission, but the actual path that I'm on right now to achieve that mission and to make that vision happen. Is it on that path? Because if I have to step too far off that path, I might not get back to it. So is it in line with my mission? Is it in line with my resources? Is it in line with my trajectory? Those 3 things. If it's not, it may be time to get off the train. Let's see. Goat says, I don't know if this contradicts with this, but I saw a show called Demon Slayer, and there's this one person who says if you're ever feeling cishearted, that you're somehow not enough, set your heart ablaze. I think, here's what I think, right? I think that we talk a lot about how to become inspired, or we talk a lot about being inspired. We talk a lot about motivating people. For heaven's sake, that's one of my goals in life. One of the things that I do is motivate people. My purpose in life is to introduce people to the best version of themselves. But we don't often talk about how motivation really happens. Motivation, we think of it as this big thing that's out there. It's this big bubble. It's this cloud. It's this thing we'll never get to. But motivation is really a step-by-step daily process of putting one foot in front of the other and then seeing where you got. Because the problem is that we think motivation happens when we encounter the big things, when we get to those big moments, we make those big choices. But if you want to succeed, if you really want to be good at anything, you have to break that thought process. And you have to make your motivation doing the daily process that you believe will eventually get you to the future that you deserve, the future where you belong. So motivation should be, for you, it should be about, did I do the things today that are most important that will lead me towards the future that I was made to live? If you didn't do those things, then that's okay. Let's do them tomorrow. If you did do those things, you need to take note of it. You need to have a system for reflecting on that and saying, you know what? Today I had a win. That's what it's all about. Motivation is about the day-by-day, step-by-step, climbing the staircase. It's not about getting to the top. It's not even about what's at the top. I'm going to talk a little bit in a little bit about that further, but that's kind of how I think that intersects there. My military experience, my leadership experience came from that, and my sense of drive and determination came from that. That's great. You know, I was talking, Phoenix, to a group about the military the other day, and I was talking about boot camp. Right, you go through this boot camp experience, or I was listening to Simon Sinek today, actually, talk about people who have had combat experience and how they look back on it not fondly, but how there is a sense of warmth around it. And I think the reason for that is part of it's chemical, right? When you're together in a stressful situation and you come through it successfully, then there are chemical bonds. There are human bonds that are formed there, and those are the most motivating things that we can possibly encounter in our lives. But I also think it's about the fact that even though from the outside, when we look at things like basic training, it looks like people are being broken down. What's really happening is that the military understands, every good military understands, that in a situation where you're going to have to rely on the people around you for not only the success of the mission, but for your survival and their survival, then you have to strip back all of the things that get in the way of you being able to support each other. And we have so many things that get in the way of us supporting each other. It's our jealousy of each other. It's our self-consciousness. It's our inability to be accountable for things. And what basic training does is it strips all those things away. And once all those things are gone, what happens is a very strong trust bond gets formed. And every great organization lives and thrives on trust. That's the basic building block for any great organization, is trust and vulnerability. So I think that's awesome. I think that's really, really great. So let's get on to the next question. First question we've answered. What is wrong with me? There's a lot of things wrong with me. We didn't even go into the diagnosable things, but we'll move on. Question number 2 is, I'm sure whoever posted that, by the way, we're 38 minutes in. I'm sure whoever posted that as a joke, I hope they get a chance to go back and watch the stream to see that we spent 38 minutes on talking through what's wrong with me. I hope that they would be entertained by that. Question number 2 is, in the interest of keeping someone in a non-work environment accountable towards their own goals, how do I not be that guy? Okay, let me read this again. In the interest of keeping someone in a non-work environment accountable towards their own goals, how do I not be that guy? Okay, so I think what the question is asking here, and tell me if you guys are hearing this differently than I heard it. What I'm hearing there is, what if I'm not at work and I'm not somebody's leader, right? I don't have a title, but there's somebody who needs to move towards working on their own goals. How can I be accountable without being a jerk or without being a nag, right? That's a really good question. And if you've ever had children, you know that this is a very real parenting issue. I mean, no lie, this is 99% of what parenting, especially older kids, is all about. It's about, how do I keep this kid accountable to doing things, to achieving things, if they're not self-driven, but also not push them away by just being a complete jerk to them? So I will tell you, I'll be completely honest with you, I haven't always solved this in the best possible way. I've got a 20-year-old, and to be honest with you, there are a lot of times when he's kind of stalled out. There are a lot of different reasons for that. A lot of those have to do with my failings. A lot of them have to do with his individual choices and with the systems that he's built or hasn't built into his life. But at the end of the day, it's still a part of my job to help motivate him towards achieving the goals that he needs to achieve. So here's what I'll do. I'll take it all back to trust. Whoever asked this question, I'm going to go back to where we just were, which is trust. You have to have trust in order to have permission to be able to hold somebody accountable to their goals. If you try to insert accountability before trust is built, then all it's going to come off as is you nagging. It's going to come off as you just just being a jerk, quite frankly. And it's never going to take hold because most people aren't challenged that way. So what do you do? Well, you have to build trust with the person. A big part of it is, and I have a coaching client that I worked with quite a bit this last year who was in a situation where they were working with a leader who was really insecure about their own ideas. And so this person, who is a really good discerner, really good evaluator, when this person would go to them and say, ooh, how about we make this change and this alteration and this change and this change? And my client was thinking in the process of making this thing better that this leader had set out. But the issue was because the leader was so insecure, they hadn't built that layer of trust. And so all that leader was hearing was criticism, even though it was really an okay situation. It should have been a fine place to say, hey, I have suggestions. And some of this is communication style too. There's a right way and a wrong way to make suggestions. But at the baseline, that trust had never been built. And so any evaluation came across as criticism. I grew up in a household where it was not acceptable to be, what the word that was used is quote unquote critical. You are not allowed to be critical of anybody because being critical was one of the greatest sins. Well, as an adult who's been working with teams and leading for 25 years, what I now see is that people who are afraid of criticism are people who are afraid they're not doing the right thing. They're people who are insecure about whether or not they're doing the right thing. And again, there's a right way and a wrong way to provide feedback, but the baseline has got to be the trust. And if you don't have the trust, no feedback that you give is ever going to find a foothold. Rose, what do you say? You said, I've had conversations with our kid about how I can help him do the things he said he'll do. Because the things that motivate me don't necessarily motivate him. So we have to learn together how he's best motivated. That's a huge part. That's one of the reasons, and you hear me talk about it all the time, but the 6 types of working genius, one of the reasons I love it so much is because it's another way, and there are other things out there. You can use the Keirsey type indicator. You can use, there's all kinds of different models, DISC and Enneagram and all those that you can use. But I like working genius because it tells you through an assessment what types of work a person really loves and they get energy from, and what types of work they really hate and those things drain energy from them. So for example, I was talking about my kid, right? I'll just talk about my kid because I know him. He loves coming up with new solutions. He loves being creative. He loves helping people. He loves being that person who jumps in to help out. He hates having to get other people on board, right? Having to galvanize people, having to draw people in. And he really is frustrated by getting things over the finish line. He really loves the creative process, the starting, but it's really hard for him to get over the finish line. I share that with him. I have a frustration in what we call tenacity, which is getting things finished. And as a result, I've had to build structures in my life to support when I've got to get a thing done. And so a big part of what I have to do for him when we had that language, that common language, was finding out, okay, what are structures we can build for you that will help you get things done? And we're still working on it. But Rose, I think what you've cleared is exactly the most important thing, and that's this. We're all gonna have biases that our way is the best way. That my way of being motivated is the right way to be motivated. That my way of getting things done is the right way to get things done. All of us are going to have those biases. The most important thing is to recognize those biases when they appear and to challenge them because not everybody is the same. I think you've got it. Creativity. Yes, exactly. Rob, welcome in. It's good to see you, Rob. Creativity is key. You've got to be creative. And here's another, let me say this, let me sidebar about creativity for a moment. People get really hung up on creativity being a thing that only creative people do. And I want to challenge you that that's another pigeonhole you should not put yourself in. Because you're creative all the time. You're coming up with creative solutions. You're solving problems every day. It may not be your favorite thing to do, but you're doing it. And you need to give yourself credit for that. you've probably heard me say this before as well, but I think if you go back to the Bible, right? Let's go back to Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? That's the first verse in all of the Bible. And whether you're a Christian or religious or anything else, it doesn't matter. It's you can accept that this is a time told story for a reason. That we hold on to these stories for reasons. And I think the reason for this, I personally believe the reason it was given to us this way is that the first thing we learn about the guy who creates the whole universe is not that he's wise. It's not that he's powerful. It's not that he's angry. It's not even that he's loving. The first thing that we learn about God in the Bible is that he's creative, that he's a creator. And I believe that later in Genesis, when it says humans were created in, excuse me, in the image of God, that means that we were created as creative beings. We are the only creative beings on the planet at the elevated level that we're at. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think that we need to reclaim our own individual creativity, because I think too many of us throw it away and we say, no, that's just the realm of the artists and the actors and the musicians. And that's not true. You're creative every day. You solve problems every day. You need to own your creativity so that when the time comes, you can recognize it and you can use it. So good comment there. So as far as keeping somebody accountable and not being that guy, the first thing you can do is not start from accountability. You can start from trust. I was telling the story of my client who was up against this leader that would get very bent out of shape whenever my client would make recommendations to them about improving systems. And the thing that we came around to was what this client of mine had to do, because their goal was really to support that leader and to make their ideas work as best as they possibly could. But the thing they were leaving out was letting the leader know that it was their goal to support them. Letting that leader know that, hey, if I'm offering suggestions, it's because I think your thing's really good. And so what we worked out was, let's practice. Instead, before you offer any suggestions, let's practice talking about specifically why you think any given thing is good. Let's take it to one of the companies that I work with right now. They're doing a big fundraiser, and it's coming up this weekend. It's why I'm not going to be online this weekend. And the boss of this company comes up with this thing. He's got it in his mind. He's got this whole picture. Now, for me, I saw that there were a couple of things that needed to be dialed in on this particular issue. So the first thing I had to do was I had to make sure he understood he had my full support. 100%. Hey, I think this idea is amazing. Here's why I think it's amazing. I think the theme is great. I think it's really, really workable for the space that we have. And most importantly, it's different from anything anybody else is doing. And I think that that's going to be a huge, huge strength. It's something that really only we could do. Now that he knew that he had my support, then it was time for me to say, by the way, have you thought of, right? So that's a little bit about, hey, kitty cat, welcome in. It's good to see you. It's very good to see you. So if you got to hold somebody accountable and you don't have the authority to do it, step one is you've got to build trust. Step two is you've got to let them know that you're there to support them. And then step three is to offer suggestions once you've established those two things. Sometimes also, it's okay to challenge people a little bit. And like I said, if you're doing this all the time, if this is all you're doing, then it's going to come off as nagging, and you don't want that. But sometimes it's okay to look somebody in the eye, to step into the frequency of the challenger. By the way, here's a short plug. The book, The 7 Frequencies of Communication, is coming out, I believe, next week. You can check it out. It's written by, again, Erwin McManus. I've been through his online course. It's amazing. I'm very excited about the book. I'll drop a link in the show notes to that on the YouTube channel. Can't do it in Twitch, but I will do it on YouTube. So go check that out. But that's one of the frequencies he talks about is the challenger. And the challenger calls people, they call them out and they call them up. They call them to being better. Sorry, I basically missed the whole stream. It's okay, Emily. It's okay. We've got plenty of time left. So sometimes it's okay to step into the frequency of the challenger if that's what's needed. My wife is a natural challenger frequency, and she's always the one I go to when I need to be called out because she'll do it. She'll do it. And I don't do that to myself. I'm not a natural challenger. Sometimes I step into that frequency. Sometimes I do it here with you guys because I can see that sometimes you need to be called out and you need to be called up. I'm back. Was getting ready. Off topic, I know. Just realized so much is missing in the background. Yeah, I decided to clean it up a little bit for this one. We're doing something a little bit different because we're doing the multi-stream, and this is going out to my professional channel. I thought, well, let's clear it up a little bit. It'll make it a little easier for the vertical and all that nonsense. So it will all come back. I promise. It will all come back. So that's that. I hope whoever asked that question, I hope there were some useful things that were there, and I hope that helped. Let's see. We've got 8 minutes left. Let's see. I think. So I have 2 questions left. I don't think I'll get to both of them, but let me try and get to, and I'm definitely not going to get to the topic that I wanted to talk about today. So that's going to have to bounce till next time, but we'll definitely be talking about the commandments versus the Beatitudes. That's a meme that I saw today that it was all over online, and I thought, you know what? I need to address this because it does have to do with life, with work, with leadership, and with being the best that you can be. And I think a lot of people are reading it wrong. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that for you guys as a, I'm going to leave that for you as a teaser for next week. All right. So the last question we're going to go into today is this. What would be the best method to stay present in all situations, be it professional or personal scenarios? So again, what would be the best method to stay present in all situations, be it professional or personal scenarios? Being present is really, really important. You can't be out of the moment. If you're too far out of the moment, if you're too far in the future or too far in the past, then you're gonna get yourself caught in a position where you're not ready to take advantage of the things that you have to do in order to advance yourself forward. And it's gonna sound strange. This may be a little bit weird and topsy-turvy. But honestly, the best way to stay present is to build a very strong discipline of reflection. Because I believe that it's the ability to reflect that allows us to be present in every given moment. The reason that we don't stay present, the reason that we get caught in the past or the future is because we don't spend dedicated time thinking about those things. And so what's happening is we're constantly being triggered to think about, oh, what happened? What happened? I remember, and I wrote about this in my book, which hopefully you'll get to read at some point, but I can still remember. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. What is something dumb you've done that you replay over and over and over in your mind your whole life? What is that one thing that you've done that's super dumb and you just keep playing over it and over it and over it in your mind like a broken record? And I know broken record doesn't even make any sense anymore, right? Because we don't really know what records are. But that concept of just that one spot just keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. That embarrassment flares back up. You can feel it almost as much as you did the first time. And I talk in the book about, there was this one time in my 5th grade class. My daughter's in 5th grade now. So when I was in 5th grade and I jumped up in class and I'm like, my teacher was telling us about, we were going to listen to the recording of The War of the Worlds. And The War of the Worlds, if you don't know, it was a book by H.G. Wells, and then it was later made infamously into a radio play. And there was kind of a hoax around it where people thought it was a real newscast and that aliens were really invading the earth. And that story's been overplayed. But for me, there was also a movie that was made of it. It's a terrible, terrible movie that was made in the 70s. There was also an updated one with Tom Cruise later that has nothing to do with any of this. But there was a movie that was made in the 70s. And when I was in 5th grade, I hadn't read the book at that point. And I didn't know about the radio show. All I knew was the movie. And so she's like, yeah, we're going to listen to The War of the Worlds. And I said, oh, man, I love that show. That's a great movie. And I just remember the teacher looking at me and saying, no, it's not a movie. It's a radio show. And I just remember being so embarrassed in that moment. And a lot of that, again, is because of a lot of the stuff that I took on when I was a kid, right? About not feeling like I was smart enough, not feeling like I was good enough. And so a lot of that came in. And so those moments were crushing for me. And I can still replay that moment over in my head. So the question is, what is the moment you're replaying over and over and over again in your head? A system of reflection helps us let go of those things. If I can bring that memory up and if I can put it down on paper, then it kind of goes away a little bit. And I'll tell you, ever since I really processed that and put it down on paper, it doesn't really pop up anymore. I don't really think about it. Even when I tell this story like that, I don't have that same embarrassment that I used to have when I would think about it. So sometimes it's about processing through those things, but you have to do it consciously. You cannot do it accidentally, or you will not remain present in the moment. The same goes with the future. If you end up daydreaming a lot about what the future is going to be, it's good. You want to dream about your future, but you should be doing it in an intentional and concerted way, because that's what's going to drive you towards the future. Because if all I'm thinking about now is where I want to be, if that's all I'm ever thinking about and not where I am, then at some points I'm going to miss some of the things that are where I am. And those are the steps that I need to take to get to where I want to be. So I think you must always be driven by your future. You should always be propelled by your future and by your past as well. You should be pulled by your future and propelled by your past. Let's put it that way. Because the past should serve as a body of evidence showing you that you can succeed in the way that you want to succeed. And your future should be magnetic. It should draw you towards it. But the present is where the rubber meets the road. So what is my recommendation for being present? Number one, have a good system of reflection. Number two, have a good idea of what your ideal future is. And once you find the tension in between those two things, that's when you'll find presence, true presence in the moment. Let's see here. And then not a great movie. True. Dumb things done daily around here. It just all blends after a while. And that's the last thing, is don't be afraid. Don't be so worried about how you look, I guess. If there's one gift that I could give to my daughter, who's about to be, she's a preteen at this point, right? She's going to be 11 in a couple months. If there's one gift I could give to her, it would be the ability to retain the lack of care about how she comes off to other people. But I can already see it forming in her. I can already see her starting to mimic the things that her friends do, right? The mannerisms and the speech patterns, and that's okay. It's a natural part of growing up. But at the same time, I know that what that's going to turn into is it's going to turn into a deep, deep concern for the way that other people see her. And so it's my job over the course of the next couple of years to remind her of the platform that we've already built for her throughout her life, which is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know who you are. As long as you are who you are, you will become who you were meant to be. Juju will be 11 tomorrow. Oh my gosh. Happy birthday to Juju, kitty cat. I hope he has a great birthday. That's awesome. Happy birthday to that guy. Well, guys, I think that is going to be it for today. I think I am out of time. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. This is, like I said, I'm doing something a little new. I hope that it works. If it doesn't, we'll continue to tweak it. We'll continue to work on it. But thank you so much. Again, if you check out my YouTube channel, the one that I've got linked in the Discord, not my gaming YouTube channel, but my professional YouTube channel, you will find the recording of this. You will also find a lot of notes that I'm going to put in there about I talked about the arena and the arena conference. I talked about the book that's coming out, Erwin's book that's coming out. There's a lot of great stuff. So that is that. Bye, Orf. Going to go watch the bear. All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Listen, guys, like I always tell you, listen, you have everything you need to do everything that you need to do. All of the resources you have are inside of you. And you have a moment of greatness that is out there waiting for you, but it's not coming for you. It's up to you to pursue that moment of greatness. Now, go be great. I'll see you next week.